I Don't Know Yet is not affiliated with any specific 12-step fellowship. The content put forth are the thoughts, opinions, and experiences of the host and guests. It is meant to be suggestive only and is in no way a reflection on how to work the steps in any fellowship or how to work any other recovery program. Okay, we are back. Thank you very much for coming in. Welcome back to I Don't Know Yet. Today I'm here with Janine. Welcome, Janine.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very, very excited to have you.
Me
you
too.
are somebody that I don't know super well on a personal level, but your recovery really shines bright in the rooms, and you're very much somebody that I look up to and aspire to have recovery like, and I'm very excited for you to come share some of your experience. So thank you for coming to do this.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also excited, and I share that viewpoint too, of you. And it's like we live in a city that recovery, there's a lot of us. And so there's only a limited amount of time, and sometimes paths don't cross as much as we'd like.
Yeah.
So this is a great opportunity, and I'm like pumped to be here with you.
Right. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And I got to say too, I have a lot of people that come on, and the way that I've always done the format is very, what do you love to talk about? Cool. I'll tell you if I have a lot to offer or hardly nothing to offer, and that kind of dictates how things go. I get excited about a lot of episodes, but this is something that a part of me is a little jealous, but like in a good way. I'm like, how did I not think of that already? Like, what a great idea. So I'm really, really grateful that you have brought this idea. Why don't you let our listeners know what we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, just over the last few years, I have been collecting questions, and I kind of jot them down. I am in my work life, I like to work smarter, not harder. And so sometimes I'll record a clip of myself explaining something to somebody, and then I can send out the same clip to somebody, and they can just review it as much as they'd like and go back to it. Especially if it's a common thing in like the counseling world, and I'm explaining the same skill or concept, and it saves time, and then it's just there as a resource. So I've been collecting these in the same way, because if there's ever a chance to record them, then that's great, because then as we work with people, we can give a resource that answers a lot of the common questions, and then saves us time, and it's there whenever anybody needs it.
Beautiful. I love that. So what is it that we're sharing with people today?
Well, the list is pretty exhaustive. I don't know. It's got a little bit of everything. It's kind of got like some misconceptions, and it's got some like tips of early recovery, and then a little bit of talking points around what to expect later on, and how to navigate some things that come up with longer term recovery, how to choose meetings, how to choose a sponsor. Like, I think it covers a little bit of everything.
I really liked how when you sent it to me, you said, what if we talked about what someone who was just starting out would want to know? And I do really appreciate that it kind of evolves from there. But these are generally things that nobody really knows about. Like, I remember being new and being in the room, and it's like, and being so proud of saying I have a home group, but I had no idea what that meant or what that looked like. So, I'm very excited about this. So whether you're new or not, I think this is going to be really helpful for everybody. So we're just going to kind of start going through some of the stuff you've jotted down and see where we end up here.
All right.
So first question that you brought up is how to pick a meeting.
How to pick a meeting.
What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, so I guess I'll also add to the whole premise of this is like, I often think like, dang, I wish somebody would have told me that, or like, would I've listened? I don't know. But if the information's there, that's a chance that I might have, especially if somebody had the experience and saying, listen, here's what you got to know. So that's kind of the framework. It's like, I wish that I had like somebody on my shoulder to give me the direction. And so that's like where all of these questions come from. So choosing a meeting, not all meetings are the same. And I didn't know that. That's like the first thing. It's like, go to meetings that you feel like you can relate and that it resonates. And, just speaking frankly, there's some meetings that still today I go and I'm like, okay, like this isn't for me. And we're in a city that there's a lot of options. And so to know that you're not going to feel the best in every single meeting, like some meetings for whatever reason, whether it's the format or the personalities, right? Like if you want to be with like-minded people, that extends beyond just recovery. It's like you can go to groups that are younger, you can go to professional groups, you can go to just women's groups. There's a lot of variety and there's a lot of different options. So just keep going to meetings until it's like, okay, this one fits. And I would also say if none of them are working, it's probably you, but
I love that. I mean, that's just it. Some of the cool things that I learned along the way, because I've been known to be a little opinionated, as I found out through my recovery journey. Things about choosing meetings. So I think the biggest thing that I have to say that I've noticed from a lot of newcomers over the years, especially in Calgary, this is specific to two different types of scenarios. So like scenario one, my home group is in a building that hosts many other groups and many other meetings. So there is a misconception that every meeting in that building is going to be the same. That is absolutely not the case.
Right.
So don't think because you went to a specific location that means you're in the same group with the same members. The other thing is if you go to a meeting in a specific room and you don't like it, please don't judge it from going one time. This has happened to me in the past. I went to a specific room and I'm like, everybody complained, like this wasn't, experience, strength, and hope, or right. Like I didn't enjoy it. And I told my sponsor about it and they're like, but you do have to understand a couple of things. Number one, if you didn't like the chairperson, they don't always chair. They're also learning how to chair. So, love and empathy. Yep. Number two, you have no idea if the people that were in that meeting are going to continue to be in that meeting or if they just drop by. Like you can't judge an entire room based on one experience with, it's one of those things you have to go to. And I went to a meeting that I didn't like. And based on that advice, I returned back 4 or 5 times and I actually ended up really, really liking that group. And I met a lot of really great people. And I'm still really close with quite a few of them. So I think that part is really important as well. But when it comes to choosing a meeting, I also find you need to go into it with the attitude of what you're like, what can I learn from this? Because I know that there's a few people, I have somebody in my mind right now. I forgot about this person. He was an old timer in this room that I used to go to, and he just he was a special type of person. You know exactly the type of person I'm talking about. But it actually stopped me a little bit. I went to that room less, and I was going there like 3-4 times a day during COVID. And I went there a little less because I had to listen to this person talk, and honestly, it just drove me crazy. And so again, I consulted a sponsor, which is great, and they gave me some great advice. And they're like, why are you putting all your focus into the one thing that you don't want to hear? Number two, you're so annoyed by them opening their mouth. Are you even listening to what they're saying? Because if you actually tried to take the resentment that you're feeling out of it, maybe you'd learn something. But it's okay not to like everything. Listen for a nugget. Listen for one thing.
Always.
And if you go into any meeting saying, maybe I won't love this, but I'm here to learn something, then there's not a single meeting anymore that I can, I can't go to a meeting and not walk out better. Because
of that mindset.
Because of that mindset.
Yeah.
But if you go in being like, oh, I bet you this is going to be bad.
Yeah. And I would also add, at the beginning, I was quite confused leaving the treatment center because it was a 12-step based center. And I couldn't talk about any steps past step 5. And so to me, that indicated that I didn't know it yet. And the book isn't, expansive on it. It's like 1 paragraph for 6, 1 paragraph for 7. And then you got to go on an adventure and you're seeking, right? So at the time I was really I felt like my life depended on it this time because I was starting to be convinced that, okay, maybe I missed something because this was the last the last like stop on the block for real, because I thought that I did it before. And I was missing a whole bunch, which is another story. But I really wanted to understand, and I knew I didn't, because if you would have asked me to share on 6 in a meeting, I wouldn't have been able to. So then I realized that I was going to varying degrees of people who were using the literature. And I thought, okay, that's something important for like me to be communicating to a newcomer, is like, you got to go somewhere where they're reading the literature, because until you know the forest, you're going to get real lost in all the trees, because you can't tell what's what. And so you really got to get a good map and understand what's in the literature, so that you can go into a meeting that isn't, using it. And there's a lot of opinions, and some of them are not literature. And so to be able to discern that, because otherwise that's what was making me so confused, is in the small community that I came from, it wasn't like we dove in like we do in other meetings that I've been to. And that's where I found the clarity. So I stopped going to the ones that were not like really focused and promoting the literature first. And I joined a home group that was just really focused on the actual program. And that's what I did. I just focused on that, and I did that all the way through. And it was a while before I added back like other meetings, because I was like guarding my recovery against like confusion and contamination. And I had to do that because I was so confused, and I was hearing a lot of different, like very different opinions that were not right, I guess. Right. And I mean, step 10 off the wall is a great example. And if I would have just depended on sitting in a meeting, I lived a life of like, oh, the step 10 is this. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it's not actually not even close. And that's a part of what I was missing for sure. But I wouldn't have been able to figure that out had I just been going to the meetings that I had to be very, very specific. And so, yeah. And I would say like everything's based off of the literature, but some are much more emphasized and intentional of not allowing confusion in various ways. But yeah.
And I know exactly what you're talking about. And I don't know if there's even a better way to say that. But like, I know there's a bunch of groups that are like, the format's like pick 3 topics. Great. But if one of those 3 topics have nothing to do with the literature, then what are we really talking about? And I used to really enjoy those types of meetings because, again, I'm opinionated and I love to share. So I want everyone to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
But I went through this like 6-month span where I was just attending all of these topic meetings. And then all of a sudden I went to broaden my horizons, see what else was out there. And then I was like, wow, there's like a whole nother deeper,
there's a whole more layers.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I remember the first time I was like, oh, like this is how good a meeting can get. Like I didn't even know.
Yeah. So would you say that meeting that you have in your mind right there, like if you zoom in on it, it's like the topic is just the tip of the iceberg. It's more about like the home group and belonging to the home group and how that home group is setting it up to be what it is.
I just so like here's the only way that I could think to describe it. I'll give you an example of like 3 topics: prayer, willingness, closed meetings. Right? So So you'll hear a bunch of people be like, "There's no wrong way to pray," and then you'll hear a bunch of people be like arguing over what a closed meeting actually is, and then how important it is to have willingness and like. While those things are all important and true, I got to a place where I felt like my only job was to be able to have a safe space where I wouldn't use for that hour. I didn't realize that it could be a very large learning experience where I could actually get a lot more out of it until I went to a room that read a portion of the book and then brought a bunch of people up to talk about that part of the book. Like it was mind-blowing for me because I'm like, I thought that the whole all the stuff you see on TV that's so wildly not even anywhere close in alignment with what the rooms are mostly like from my experience anyways.
Yeah.
Right? Is all people just kind of standing up there and talking about their struggles and talking about whatever they want to talk about.
And people often are like, okay, if this is it, then like if this is sober, I don't want it, right? And it's like, so what the meeting that I had with, it could be the same meeting that we're talking about, but when I did join a home group that seemed to be using, well, they did use the literature, it went right up and then it was discussed, but I went to the business meetings and I was like, whoa, there's like so much to this that puts the show on, and let's call it the presentation of the meeting. And they're very detailed. This particular meeting was so detailed, and every last like decision, right down to the applause. So like when I joined this home group, it was like September, and it wasn't till the spring till they finally decided if they should keep all the applause or not keep all the applause. And it was almost like working in the government,
Can we table this to next month's business
that's
meeting?
exactly what it was. I was like, seriously, but it was because like, what is the experience for the newcomer? Right. Is it too much clapping? Is it not enough clapping? Do we want I'm like, it's a game show. Less clapping, but they kept the clapping, and I mean, it works, I guess, because it's cheerful and that's the vibe of that meeting, And we go to the same meeting, and there's a whole vibe there too, right? People are like loving it or not loving it, but if it feels like you're loving it, then stay.
Well, yeah, it's funny. Like I've brought a couple sponsees over the years to my home group, and the one in particular, God, I love her. She left about 15 minutes in the first time, and said like too many triggers, too crazy, like absolutely not. And I was like, really? Like that's why I love.
You're the one that's like so loud.
I'm like the loudest one at that meeting. No surprise to anyone that knows me. I ended up asking her if she would try to let go of the initial reaction and give it a chance. And then it ended up becoming her home group and stuff. But that's the beauty of choosing meetings. If you feel overwhelmed by high energy, continue to, not every meeting is like that.
Yeah.
I walked into that meeting because that was a part of the program for the treatment center that I went to. So for the Monday night home group.
Yeah.
And I walked in there and I watched all of these people. I wasn't convinced that most of them were sober because they all seemed like they were high because the energy was so high. But like I remember walking in and just like listening to these people and everyone's laughing and having a good time. Yeah. I remember like the first face that I ever remember seeing 5 years ago was Robbie. Like I remember seeing all of these amazing high energy people, and all I could think to myself was like, I'm home. These are my people. And then I've gone to other meetings and I'm like, I just don't fit in here. And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly what I'm talking about is like, it's a personality thing. It's like, there's a lot of like good friendships in our group, you know, because it's like it's that's the vibe, if you're going to be like kind of out there and I would say you like to have fun and we're like that, a lot of energy, and we like to have fun and a lot of I don't know, our personalities match the vibe and so therefore you have like, we do a lot of things together and have a lot of fun and that's what you want, is like you want to build a fellowship of people that are sober and are some like beyond like recovery, because
and to show people that you can still enjoy life without it, right? I just found that so important myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Moving on. Oh, I have to go all the way back now. Damn it.
It's a lengthy list.
Right?
We're going to be here till...
Oh, this is going to be a good one. How to avoid gossip and drama in the rooms. You want to start, or do you want me to start on that one?
Okay, let me think here. Are you loaded?
Oh,
ready to go?
I could talk about this.
Yeah, you can start.
So, I mean, one of the things that benefited me immensely in my journey was that I was court mandated through a legal program, and they were very adamant on their rules, and I was stuffed full of fear. So they were like, you can't talk to anyone that's in active addiction. You definitely can't hang out with anyone who's in active addiction. So for me, my first 18 months was pretty easy because my walls were up so high. I had to know that you were walking the walk before I would, like consistently, before I would ever even think about having a conversation or coffee with you outside. And while that made it really hard in year 2 and year 3 to let those down and actually find connection and balance with friendships, it served me really well because I stayed out of all that shit because I was never a part of any of it. As I started to progress, I would say, like, and here's the thing, you can't avoid everything because you're talking about sick people.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people really understand the depths of which there are spiritually sick people in the rooms. Just because I have a couple of years under my belt, just because I have some experience doing some things does not for a second mean that I am a healthy person, that I have it all together, that I know what I'm doing. I am a human. I'm going to lean into defects sometimes. I'm going to make some mistakes. But generally speaking, I'm a pretty kind person that tries and does my best. So that being said, I've had more than one occasion where things have gone south with a sponsee and they've retaliated and smeared my name online. It doesn't feel great, but at the same time, I learned very early on that anyone that believes those words aren't worth listening to anyways. Anybody who's supposed to be in your circle understands that this is a sick person that's going through their thing. So I really just lean into the love and tolerance of it all. I cut communication with this person and I welcomed them back with open arms. I looked them in the eye and welcomed them back when they came back to the rooms because obviously that was on their way out. So there's an example of that. I think that also being an advocate to put an end to that when you see it is a really, really big thing, which I'll be honest, I am a people pleaser. I need your love. I need your validation. I need you to tell me I'm doing a good job. I really struggle with telling you anything that might not provide me that love, acceptance, and that warm, fuzzy feeling. So I have a specific memory in mind. We had all gone out for wings for fellowship after a meeting. And there was 2 members, which in my opinion, and this is where we get into trouble when we have opinions, in my opinion, had more than enough recovery between them to, in my thought, for lack of a better word, to know better.
Right.
And so a resentment came in pretty quick. So I'm sitting here, there's someone sitting next to me and someone sitting across from them, and I'm listening to them have a conversation so easily. I don't think they did it maliciously. I don't even, if I'm being honest, I don't even think they realized what they were doing. They were definitely talking about somebody behind their back. Not super negative, but they were. And I remember sitting and like a volcano, like I was trying so hard to keep it in, and I also was trying so hard not to burst because my defects are like, if you say something, they won't like you. Maybe you should just sit there and just do what you've always done. Avoid it and it'll go away. Everything will be fine. And then I'm just like, oh my God, but if somebody was doing this about me, I'd want someone to stand up for me. And how can I, like, what am I going to do? And I remember like, I just sat there. I'm like, God, please help me to not explode, but give me the courage to say something.
Nice.
And I just remember having a very clear, this moment of clarity. And I said, hey, I'm actually not super comfortable with you guys having a discussion about anyone who's not in the room. So if we could just change the subject, I'd really appreciate it. And they both looked like alarmed, like, oh my God, like, were we gossiping? Like, oh shit, like my bad. And then they definitely changed their tune. But I think that that's something to take into account is like, sometimes people just do it. They don't even know they're doing it. But whether they know or not, I think that it is absolutely our responsibility to nip it in the bud if we can. But my experience has shown me that if I'm listening to someone talk consistently about someone who's not in the room, they're probably not somebody that I want eating at my table. And more often than not, if they're talking smack about someone else, they're also talking about it from their perspective, which if you are doing that and in the rooms, you're probably pretty spiritually sick, which means that it's probably only got a shred of truth to it anyways.
Yeah.
But I think for me, like I remember someone once told me, don't listen to what people say, listen to what people do. And so I kept my eyes open and I listened to people share. And then I watched the way they talked after the meeting ended. And I watched the way they acted at the whatever fellowship event we were at. And I very quickly was able to figure out who's in this to grow and who's in this for the look of it. And from that, I really just grew attached to the people that were really doing this thing. And because of that, I haven't really had to worry all that much about drama and gossip because I lean on the people who are better than me and I keep trying to get better myself.
Yeah. Yeah. You brought up like a ton of points there. I guess like I'll add a couple things for those of us who don't have a court order to protect us from this type of thing. We are so scared of, the guilt and the shame and all the things. And a lot of us, if not all of us, come in with the people pleasing, right? So it's a bad combo because we're full of shame and we're scared of people and avoiding conflicts, right? So and then there's a dynamic that if you're thinking about it, it's like this can get pretty hairy when you've got a sponsor and you're talking to your sponsor about the things, and then I'm going to call my sponsor and talk about these things, and it can be kind of a breeding ground for gossip. And so going into recovery this time, I, like you said, leaned into like the truth doesn't need justification, and I tell people that are new, it's like right now your story is not unique at all. Like it's like there's nothing here that is going to make you stand out. And if people are talking about you, doesn't matter. Those are not the people that you want around anyways. You'll grow past that and live in today, starting now, live a life that you don't have to justify anything. Make sure everything you're doing is something that you'd be okay with a Facebook announcement, because then it doesn't matter who's talking, because the ones who are talking about you in a negative way, it's like, it doesn't matter because the truth doesn't need any justification. So if you can stand in your truth, then you're less susceptible to these emotional upswings and being affected to people when they're talking about you. Because if all you need to do is stand in your own integrity, and then you aren't affected by the winds of gossip from other people. Because living, and I also relate to the people pleasing, then you're always blowing in the wind, trying to adjust to the weather for the crowd that you're with, and it's like it's impossible. And so
it's exhausting too.
It definitely is. So I guess I found comfort in the fact that, like, I know nobody's unique. Just listen to people talking. It's like we all have our stories, and those stories are how we help other people. And so, like we bring up the promises all the time about we're gonna not want to close the door on our past because we need it to be helpful. And like the past becomes really funny sometimes, all those horrific stories. And it's like, you get to a place that it's like, yeah, that's what happened. And I recovered. And then that doesn't matter either because you're standing in your truth. And you talked about a good point about like, individuating, I guess is like the word I'm thinking of. But in our terms, it'd be like water finds its level. Where if you're spiritually fit and I come around and I'm like gossiping and I'm, just doing these things that are not that, you're going to say, you know what, like I'm not going to go for coffee with her because that doesn't feel good to me. And so it's like you just adjust. And people also have that flip side where it's like people won't come up to you if you're way too spiritually fit, it's scary. And I remember being like that. Like my first sponsor was like, she was so peaceful and so like, and I was so chaotic, and I knew I couldn't like match her peace, and it made me very uncomfortable comfortable to
intimidating.
sit with her. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in my own, like recognizing how chaotic I felt inside and maybe even outside. And and I ended up like not calling her back. This was like my first go around with AA, but I met with her to do the steps, and I got there and I was like 20 minutes late with all the addiction excuses. And she's like, I'm just going to stop you right there. When you're late, it communicates to me that you don't respect my time. Do you respect my time? And I was like, and I was like, oh my God, this is so uncomfortable. So I didn't stay the course with her because it was like, she was just like too much of a mirror in front of me. And so like, it's the flip side too, is like, people will go to the ones that they're at the next level. If they're seeking it, they're not going to jump this way. And we're also not going to be hanging out with people that are like brand new, because there's still a lot of like chaos and stuff. And so like I'll sponsor somebody new, but I don't really have a good time hanging out in that type of like mindset, because it still like needs to heal and recover and calm down. And so it kind of just sorts itself out. But the bottom line is just don't, from today on, just make sure that you're living a life that it's okay to gossip about. And then you're in your integrity, and it doesn't matter if people gossip about it or not. Yeah.
I think that you actually brought up a really good point without even knowing it, that I've seen a lot of. I mean, generally speaking, once you've sponsored enough people, you'll figure this out. But I can't tell you how many people I've watched sponsor others and not understand the line or the importance of the line between sponsor, sponsee, and friendship. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen a sponsor take a sponsee under their wing and be like, oh, this one's special, so I definitely should bloom this friendship right from the get-go on step one.
Yeah.
And then things get hairy because you have a healthy person trying to have a healthy relationship with an unhealthy human. And it's very difficult to do so. And I've seen a lot of times of it not going very well when you don't understand that this person needs to heal. And once they have consistently shown you that they're doing the work around that, and they've shown you that they have the same values in friendship as you do, great, be friends with them. But that is something that I see a lot of.
Yeah. That I guess I just with like work I do with, like, I'm in social work, and so we have a code, and we don't do certain XYZ, and I just kind of translated that where like you don't lend money, and you don't, there's all these things you just don't do. Yeah. And it's to protect you and them. Mm-hmm. And it's like you're putting them at risk for, relapse in this case, but like you want to set it up so that they have the best chance. And with that, it's like, you got to make it stable, and you have to make it like you're a mentor. You're not a friend that has blurred boundaries that that they can get mad at and then put your name all over the internet. Like it's like you protect yourself and you protect them. And I know, like, for me, I would want somebody who could put their foot down and who could draw parameters around what we're doing, and this is what we're doing, because at coming into recovery, things are so chaotic and boundaries are blurred, and there's people pleasing all over the place. And so to be able to set that up in a way that, okay, this is like the anchor, right? This is different than everything else that I'm doing. And so that's helpful to actually communicate to people as you're sponsoring, as I've been sponsoring. I don't say it like this, but more like, you're not friends till you finish the steps. But it is helpful to explain, like, you're protecting yourself, you're protecting this person. It's like you're the anchor, you're the first point of, like, this is what stability looks like, this is what boundaries look like, right? Like, you're modeling these things. And so I guess I can do a better job of explaining that, because I'm just like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that.
Well, see, and it's funny, like I actually put this verbiage in when I do a first meet with somebody. I say, like, just a heads up, like when you start living on spiritual principles, it's very easy to become drawn to other people that are living by spiritual principles. So a sponsor and a sponsee can definitely bloom into a friendship.
Yeah.
But I need you to understand that at this point, I am your sponsor, not your friend, which means you're not allowed to come to me if you just want to bitch about something.
Mm-hmm.
You want to come to me when I can help you with my experience of how I grew through that using these steps or using God or whatever the situation is. But I'm very, very, because the problem being a people pleaser, when I first started sponsoring, I wanted to be friends with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I just want you to love me. I'll do whatever you want me to do. No problem.
Yeah.
Right. And I had to go through a lot of painful times and I had to learn a lot of lessons, but I like to make that very clear from the beginning. I'm like, I'm not your friend. I'm not your buddy. I'm not here to lend you money. I'm not here to bail you out.
Yeah.
Right. If it's an emergency, call 911. Otherwise, talk to God first and let me know what he said.
Yeah. Well, and that's like the other side of it is you don't want to be creating a dependency, because in the end, that's going to collapse, and it's not sustainable. And a lot of times when these relationships fail, it's because there's been too much dependency on the sponsor, which is just supposed to be the connection to, like, you can depend on me for a minute, but then your dependency has to, shift over to the higher power.
Yeah. And
to be able to facilitate that so that there isn't that dependency, because with that dependency comes like you're on a pedestal and people fall down, and it's just not sustainable.
I think that the next question is actually a kind of about this. So I think this is actually going to work out well, because I think it was about sponsors. How to pick a sponsor and what to do if your sponsor isn't a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a loaded one.
Let's split it up. How to pick a sponsor.
Yeah, how to pick a sponsor. Okay, well, how to pick a sponsor is like you want what they have.
But what does that mean?
Well,
what does that look like?
So I think that for me, it's been like what I was looking for initially was somebody who was like, who had done what I was doing. So when I was looking for somebody and some like support in this way in Calgary, I was needing to move from the city that I was in, which was like leaving my job, I rented my house out. My kids were still in the city, in my hometown. I was just like taking a plunge because I knew like I had to get somewhere where there was a community of good recovery. And I knew that without that, I wasn't going to be able to stay sober. And I wasn't going to be able to figure it out because I still hadn't figured out the whole thing. So I was looking for somebody who had done something like that. And when I heard of a story of somebody who did, I contacted them and I said, can I meet with you? And this is what's up. And we met and chatted. And then that person was like very influential in helping me move to Calgary, because our story was quite similar. Like I really wanted to do what they did, which was leave their old job and, start a new life and really just go into the unknown, and that they were okay. And so for whatever reason, I believed that this person had done that. And well, there was a lot of reasons, but I truly believed, and that was like my higher power was the faith in that person's, like that they did it and they got the result that I wanted. And so it's something like that, it's something like, okay, they did it and they got the result that I'm looking for. And it's like an attraction to the results. And so I would say that when would I change sponsors, or when have I changed sponsors? And I have, and it's been when the person didn't have not the results, but the experience to produce the results. So it wasn't like a shortage of anything on the person. It was like the sponsor that I switched from didn't have kids, and she was retired. And I'm like, I have kids, and I'm working and balancing quite a bit. And I just relocated to a new city, and I was single mom. And I hate the term single mom, like feel sorry for me, but like there was just me. And so I was balancing a lot of things. And this woman, she just couldn't relate to it. And so her answers were like not hitting. And like as much as I like loved all the results in other areas, I needed to move to somebody who was doing this with parenting and getting the results. And so for me, like, when would you switch sponsors? That's one of the big reasons, is like, I don't go to anybody but a mortgage broker to talk about a mortgage. And so that's kind of like what I would suggest to people is, you picked a person for a reason. If there's conflict, contend with it in the environment. This is like what we're doing. And this is the like sometimes the first model of what we're doing in the rest of the world is like what's happening in the sponsor-sponsee relationship. And so don't run from that conflict, resolve it. And if it's like unresolvable, or if there's like unhealthy stuff going on, like bring in pillars and get feedback. But my message is always contend with it in the environment and move through it. And if you're going to change sponsors as a result of this conflict, don't do it without having the sit down and the hard conversations, because you're selling yourself short. And like, that's what this is our environment to do that the first time, like for the first time, a lot of times is with that person. And that should be a safe person to do that with. Right. And so
it should be, you hope that it
and
is.
Sometimes it's not, but that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, I really like how you explain that. I was thinking back to my sponsors that I've had, and it brought up something that I've never actually taken into consideration. And I'm just starting to wonder if I now have a resentment about it.
Talk it through, girl.
The term temporary sponsor. It just drives me bananas. I don't know where it came from. I don't like it.
What about it drives you bananas?
Because that's not what a sponsor's for. My belief, and because it was interesting, because Matt and I were just talking about this as well. My belief is that if you're going to refer to somebody that's not going to do the book with you as a temporary sponsor, that's just implementing in these new people that you're supposed to rely on one person. Like, why can't you just say, find a community, find pillars as soon as possible. And then when you find someone to go through the book with, that's your sponsor.
Probably like, I wonder if it's a treatment center thing, because
I don't know.
Like in the treatment center I was with, it was like you had to find a sponsor really fast. You didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah.
And then they just came in for the 5. So they had no context, no rapport.
Yeah.
And then they're in and it's like super awkward. And you're like, I don't know. Really.
And maybe my experience is what kind of triggered that like immediate reaction. I don't know. But like being in the mandated program that I was in, they were like get it figured out right away.
Yeah.
So like when I was in detox, I listened to a lady come in through the Hospitals and Institutions Committee on that fellowship, and she shared her story. And I was more on the drug side. She was definitely not at all even close to the drug side, straight up alcoholic.
Yeah.
Our experiences were vastly different.
Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of relatability, but there was something about her. I couldn't stop listening to her. And so I love sharing this because this is not the case for a lot of people. A lot of people are like, I related to this person. I'm like, I didn't relate to anything, but I just couldn't stop listening to her talk. And so I approached her. I was terrified. I said, will you be my temporary sponsor? And she said, yeah, no problem. So I went into treatment. COVID hit while I was in treatment. So that was a whole interesting thing. She took me to a Galentine's Day sober girls Valentine's Day party before things got crazy with COVID.
Yeah.
And then I got out, world shut down. And I didn't know anything. I was going to 4 meetings a day, which was great, but I didn't know anything. I met this wonderful woman 4 times.
Yeah.
We never opened the book. Never once. It was literally just conversations. How are you? Are you concerned about anything? Do you have any questions about anything? Is there anything I can support you with? It was very weird.
Right.
And then I kept attending 4 meetings a day, and I'm listening to people talking about meeting their sponsors and reading the book, and they're getting homework and they're doing the steps.
You're like,
and
I'm going to Valentine's Day parties.
I'm like, I don't, like, you're supposed to read the book. Like, I was very confused. Very confused. So I kept listening to people. I sought out some people, and they're like, I don't know what's happening there, but you need to definitely start working on your steps. So at that time, I remember I've heard a couple different things. I've heard a bad sponsor is better than no sponsor. And I do believe that. Only in the terms of like, I've seen people wait.
Well, we could argue that one both ways.
Both ways. Yeah. So I want to draw the line there where don't wait a year to find the perfect person. Yeah. But don't take just anybody. Right. I think there has to be a line there. But I've seen a lot of people be like, I just haven't found the right fit. And I'm like, start. So start.
I like what you said there, because it's like people are looking to relate sometimes to the drunkalogue. Mm-hmm. Like it's like this person drank like me, or this person, had all these DUIs or whatever it is that you're relating to the problems of it. And I guess like in line with what I was saying about like the results of whatever this woman had that you were attracted to was the results of whatever she was doing. And although you didn't relate to the problem, like the addiction problem, that wasn't when you were like, I don't know what it is, but I like the results. Yeah. I think having a bad sponsor, how did you say that?
Having a bad sponsor is better than no sponsor.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so
I don't believe that. I've heard that.
It's like, how bad? That's the question, is how bad? Because, I think it's great to have a connection point. And if the bad sponsor is just bad because they haven't opened the book, then okay. But if they're given just really, really bad advice, then I guess. But it's permission to change your mind with some advice. Like, don't just do it yourself, because get the feedback from people who, like, you've identified as pillars or supports in the rooms. I think that that's so important in conjunction with a sponsor, is like have some other people that you can talk to about things for situations like this, but also like we can trick our sponsors. We trick ourselves. That's why we're so tricky. It's like self-delusion. So we believe ourselves first. We're not trying to trick anybody. We're already tricked.
Yeah.
And so then we're like telling our sponsor, and we might trick our sponsor. It can sound pretty good because we can justify the craziest shit. So it's like, you got to have other people to be like, okay, like this is, you're delusional. You're tricking 100%. Yourself. You're full of shit. You're, because you have a better likelihood of not tricking 5 people than you do of just tricking the one person.
Totally. And you know what? I think it was so important for me to be able to learn from all these people that I'd been like, tell me about your sponsor. Like, why did you pick them? Like, don't think you can't ask anybody. Like, I literally was walking around in different meetings just being like, tell me how you picked your sponsor. Like, I have no idea what to do. And then I eventually find somebody with the results of what you're looking for and do that. And then I asked someone to sponsor me, and we worked together for 3 years, and she was great. She was great. She taught me a lot about how not to rely on only her. She taught me a lot about the book. She taught me a lot about myself. She once spent hours picking apart everything that I was doing on the day-to-day to figure out why I couldn't pinpoint why I was so fucking depressed. Like, she was a wonderful, wonderful human, and I owe a lot to her. But in the spirit of talking about the right fit, I reached a point after about 3 years where and it took me a while to realize it, because I didn't even understand. So I hope people listening understand that it's okay to go through this too. I reached out to someone that I care about, a lot, and has always given me really great advice. And I just said, I guess I feel stuck. I guess I just don't know what else I have to learn from this person. And their response was like literally bang on. They're like, maybe you've learned everything that you needed to learn, and it's time to learn from someone else. And I was like, oh my God, is that a thing?
It's revolutionary.
Like, is that, but again, then the people pleasing, but how am I going to, oh my God, like, I don't want to, but now because of this, we have grown into friends. I think the really cool thing about sponsorship and the healthiness and the spirituality of it all, I remember my first appointment with her. I remember vividly one of her things that she always taught me that I tell potential new sponsees is my job is to be the best sponsor I can, still a human, for as long as you need me, whether that be a day, a week, a month, or 10 years. As long as I have what you're looking for and I'm doing the right things, as long as you're putting in as much effort as I am, like, this can work. Cool, great, awesome, amazing. Should you ever no longer want what I have, should you find somebody you just click with better, your recovery is your own journey. I'm never going to be upset if we have to part ways in this capacity. And she gave me that, so I give everybody that. I'll tell you, I still had to pray for 45 minutes before I made that phone call. Yeah. And I was terrified to let her know that while I appreciated everything she had done, I was looking for something else.
And how did she take it?
She laughed. She said, "Are you crying?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Do you not remember the conversation we had?" I said, "No, I remember it." She's like, "I love you. Yeah. I'm so happy for the time that we had. Are we still friends?" And I'm like, "You bet we are." She said, "Then we're good."
Yeah.
We're good. I wish nothing but the best for you. I want you to be happy. And if this is your time to level up, girl, go get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a friend she lives in BC. I went to high school with her, and she got sober like 9 years ago, and she works for a like online recovery community that they do online recovery things. Anyways, she found the spiritual piece first, and she was very like, no 12 steps for me. And so then I got sober, and then like having the conversation, she'd be open to it, but she was like, "Oh yeah, not for me," whatever. And then like about a year ago, she asked, she's like, "Do you know somebody who could like maybe take me through the steps?" And I was like, there's nobody like near you. And she goes, "Not really. Like I haven't found like somebody who I want what they have." And she's like, "I trust your opinion. I know that there's a lot of like people in your home group." And so I was like, "Let me think about it." Because it's hard too when you're not like when there's been a skepticism and like maybe like a resistance for whatever reason. Because then you're having to like, there's
prove
a lot
yourself.
Prove the program, I guess. Yeah, I love that. Exactly. And so I was like, okay, who can I think of that can combat these questions,
and knock down these barriers?
Yeah. And so the person that I thought of goes to our home group, but he's a male and doesn't sponsor females. And so I called him and I was like, "Hey, I need a favor." And he was like, "I don't sponsor females." I'm like, "I know, but I really, really think this would be an amazing fit because like she would be so interesting to you, and like you're the exact vibe, and I've known her for years and years." I'm like, "Please think about it." So he's like, "Okay." And I said, "No pressure." But lots of pressure,
but a lot of
pressure. And so he came back and he's like, if you co-sponsor with me. And I was like,
"Ooh."
Sure. I was like, "Sure." So we started doing that like, I don't know, 7 months ago or so. And there was no like urgency because she was already sober, and this was more about like learning the steps, and like she applies the things, but there's not a like, we got to get this done quick because your life depends on it. It's like your emotional world is depending on it, I suppose. But she also took a trip to Peru, so that put some things in hiatus. But over the last like 7 months, we have had amazing discussions. That's why it's taken so long too, is like we get on Zoom and like he'll go through the book, and the things that he says, I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, that's like amazing." And then like she'll say things that get the conversation going. And so I'm learning all these new things from like this co-sponsor situation.
Yes.
Even though like he was a pillar who I would call with my own things, he wasn't sponsoring me. So we weren't going through like the literature like this. And so it's been just like amazing to do this alongside of him. And I'm so grateful for that because I've learned so much from that. And so it really like it cements the fact that you can just go through the steps and then go through the steps again with someone else, and you learn a whole different
totally
realm of things. It's like it's the same, but it's just got
totally different
somebody's complete different experience and take on things. And it's amazing because it's like kind of limitless, like everybody's got their like nuggets at certain places. And yeah, so it's not even uncommon that people just want to have a new experience with someone going through the steps again with someone else because of that reason. There's just a whole nother brain on it with all kinds of different insights. So
I love that. I love that you brought that up because I went through this phase probably around 7 months ago as well. Like I just kind of felt like I was listening to people talk in the rooms, and I was listening to people say all these different things. And then I was like, am I supposed to be going through the steps again? Like, I only went through the book with somebody one time, and I just reach out when I need help. Maybe I should do this with somebody else. So I asked my sponsor, I said, can we do this? Because I keep hearing that it's beneficial. Maybe I need it. And he was great. He said, why don't we co-sponsor someone and give the miracle to someone at the same time? I feel like that would be a better use of our time.
Love it.
I was like, I love that. Still looking for the right person for that. But it's interesting, since that, now I'm having people come to me that I know are through the book. And now they're asking me to take them through the book. So I'm putting that same challenge on them. And I said, and like one of them has never sponsored, one has only sponsored a couple.
Yeah.
And I said, what a better way to learn how to do this. I'm like, so I challenge you to do the same thing. Find someone to sponsor and see if the three of us can meet up and see if we can do it together. But I love that whole co-sponsor idea.
Me too.
Yeah.
This question isn't on the list, but I'm going to bring it up just because of what we're talking about. I can argue both sides of this, so I'm curious to see where you would weigh in. Okay. So step 12 is like about being of service, carrying the message, all of this, right? And so we think of this as sponsoring. So I have a friend who doesn't sponsor much because of their personality. So they get overshone, and they're...
What do you mean?
Like all the loud people with like messages that are heard. Blaring, yeah. And who are probably just gifted public speakers too, right? Like it is a whole thing to get up in, especially in our home group.
Oh, I don't know if you've ever noticed, I don't look at a single person's eyes when I share. Even though people think that I'm great at sharing, I'm constantly looking around the room because there's a lot of people
There's
in there.
a lot of people there. Yeah. And so it's like you have to, it already sets you apart if you're able to public speak.
Nervous. Yeah.
And if you're not, then you're not going to come across as you are, right? Like it's like you're not an accurate representation of the program that you are living. And so to be able to communicate that, it's a skill set, I would say. And it's something that you can develop with practice, but some people have it and some people just don't. They're naturally introverted and shy, and some people are more articulate than others. And so for those people, and I had this conversation with this person because they said, you don't have to just sponsor. There's lots of other things that you could be doing. And I was like, this is interesting. And it's like, I somehow think this is right, but I feel like saying, no, you must sponsor, because that's like what we're so, I wanted to say indoctrinated, but it's like what we're told, and it's like that this is the only way. And I think you can carry a message in all these other ways, like being part of the Roundup committee for the Banff Roundup a couple of years ago, and just watching that come together. And I was like, wow, there's so much work in this, and we wouldn't have a Banff Roundup if it wasn't for all these people who probably aren't doing the excessive heavy sponsoring that we do, or that we would be attracting, because we are like a louder type of person, and people notice us and approach us. But there is a whole bunch of people that that look for sponsees and have a really hard time just getting even one, because of their personality being on the shyer side or more introverted, and because they're not showcasing their recovery like a loud person with lots of opinions like us would be,
Who, me?
So it's like that for those people, like there's a whole underground world of carrying the message, and these are the people that I would say are behind the scenes holding the whole thing up in some ways. Weigh in.
Okay. So I really agree with a lot of that. I really disagree with a lot of that. If I'm being totally honest. Okay. Step 12 states, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Now,
emphasis on the tried.
Right. And this is why I both agree and disagree. So, first of all, there's no such thing as a bad idea when it comes to being of service of something.
I love that. Yeah.
Like being of service is a spiritual principle. The end of the step specifically says we try to practice these principles in all our affairs. And if you're trying to get out of self, then you're going to try to help others. And I think that it's really important that that is done.
Yeah.
Do I think that being of service in other areas is a compensation for taking someone through the book? In my opinion, absolutely not.
And it could be used as that for sure.
And that's like, oh, I don't need to worry about sponsoring because I'm being of service in other areas. The thing that I have found is that I only got really good at the steps when I had been through the book 15 or 20 times because I took 14 or 15 people through the book.
Yeah.
When you go through, when you're being taught it from someone else, I can't tell you how many times my sponsor 5 years ago was reading a chapter and I'm sitting there totally pretending like I'm following along, but really I'm thinking about the cute guy in the meeting I saw last night. Or I'm thinking about how much I should have canceled because I just don't want to fucking be here now. Like, you miss so much of the first go around. I remember I knew the mom of one of my sponsees. And so we got her through, and like the day that we finished, I'm like, fly little birdie, go get somebody. Now you got to start sponsoring too. And she whipped her head around and she's like, what? And I was like, what? She's going to go find a sponsee. It's going to be great. And she's like, she's not even a year sober yet. Do you really think,
that's a good myth.
Do you really think that's a good, like the fear that she had, she's like, do you really think that that's a good idea? And I was like, oh, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And she's like, she was very worried. She's like, I want my baby girl to be okay. Like, what if she's not ready? And I said, just so you know, when she goes through it with someone else, she's going through it again. And every time she goes through it, her steps are going to get better. And every time she goes through it, she's taking out more insurance against not relapsing.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, is that how it works? I'm like, that's how it works. And she's like, go, honey, go get a sponsee. Go.
Okay, fine, you win. Because there is that. I was just thinking, okay, like it actually doesn't even come close to doing the healing
but
that happens.
At the same time, though, I think that it is also harmful for somebody who sponsors 1,000 people and doesn't do anything to be of service to get out of their own shell and learn something.
Right.
And I think that there is something to be said for both. I think for those people, I have one of those in my sponsee group. Somebody who will not attempt at this time to get over their fear of public speaking, who does not share at meetings ever, who has strong fucking recovery and is one of my favorite people. But she is the opposite of me. She's very quiet, very to herself, very calm, cool, collected. I don't know why she picked me, if I'm being honest. We're very different people.
Yeah.
But I have absolutely no problem being the front man for my people. So for somebody who struggles to get that attention, I have two pieces of advice.
Yeah.
Either one, be a hunter like I used to be, whether I was good at speaking or not. Pay attention to who the new people are and fucking go talk to them after the meeting.
Yeah.
If some, like, when I was looking for sponsees, whether I was good at speaking or not, I approached that person. My name would already be on that sheet, but I would literally say, hi, I'm Jen. I'd like to be a support for you. Would love to grab coffee sometime. Put my number in your phone. What's your number? Like, I made sure that it happened.
You were doing your due diligence.
I was in there, right? So if I have a sponsee who is like, I highly recommend approach people in private, one-on-one, where it's less intimidating to do that. If that person is still having issues landing somebody, then I would ask for help from a sponsee or pillars. I would have no problem going to meet someone and then saying, hey, I know a person who's just dying to dig in with someone.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to bring them. Let's the three of us have a conversation. There's a lot of ways that a person who is the loud blaring can still help. But the thing is, we don't know if you don't ask. So if you're a shy, introverted person, if you can't speak publicly, if you can't find a sponsee, fucking ask someone to help you.
So we're talking like the willingness, right? So it's like,
if you really want
there's a will, there's a way.
There's a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I absolutely think that you need to go through the book to get better at the steps. And that happens by sponsoring.
Totally. And I was thinking of, well, like when you're talking the insurance piece and like getting better at the steps, and like getting better at the steps to me is like healing more layers of myself, right? And these moments that happen when I'm working with someone else are, you know, this is where I'm connecting to like the love, you know, and the higher power of it all happens like in these moments where, you know, like I'll tell you a story. I was yet to sponsor, like immediately coming out of the treatment center. It was the recommendation, right? Yeah. And I was horrified, like, because I was of the myth of you have to have a lot of time in to sponsor, right? Which it's funny now. Like, it's funny to me that I ever thought that, but I did. And I felt it pretty strongly. And I'm like, what do I have to offer? And it's like, well, you have everything to offer because you're like just a little bit sober, which is what they're trying to do. You know, I know that somebody a year sober at one time, I was like, I have nothing, like, not relatable. Like, I doubt I could ever get to a year. Yeah. And so it was a different language, but somebody who had gotten to a month, like, how did you get to a month? Tell me. Yeah. Right. And so I got this phone call from this Indigenous woman, and she just picked my name off the list. And I went in and I could tell right away, like, she wasn't a fan of me. Like, there was some tension in the room. I was like, oh my goodness, like, this is going to be a long one. And it was maybe my, I don't know, 6th step 5 at this treatment center. And I was doing them pretty regularly at the beginning. And anyway, so we sit down and she's just kind of looking at me and I'm pretty uncomfortable, right? Like, she's daggers. And so she starts talking, and she has to do it because she's mandated and this is what we're doing. So she starts robotically reading off her resentments. And typically, the biggest resentment is first. There's exceptions to that, but usually it's the biggest one. And for her, it was that, and it was her mom. And so she started telling me the story of like her mom committed suicide when she was 12. And so she was talking through it. And anyway, so the story, it had a lot of moments that I was able to say, like, well, when you did this, did that mean that you didn't lose your kid, love your kids? And like, to just kind of get into the perspective of the mom and be able to like understand some of the things that were blocking her, right? And anyways, she was really stuck. She was living in all this resentment, and I was really trying to like unhook it, a little bit of it for her, because resentment, number one offender, right? And so if you can do a little bit of that in this process, that's a lot. And anyway, I had this memory come to me, and I would have, it probably would have just been in the abyss, and it would have never come to me, Jen, because all of a sudden I remembered holding my little baby, and I was in the bathroom, and it was about a month or so before I got to started the treatment process, and I was like, I'm just gonna like die with him. And it was the one, like the low where I was actually like genuinely having death thoughts, and I was holding the baby. And I remember thinking, like, I'll just bring him. Like, I'm just going to bring him with me so that he doesn't have to go through all this stuff on earth. And like, I was just like watching him, and like, I was believing I was going to do him a favor because I loved him so much, and I was going to spare him from like all of this. And it's like depression talking for sure. But like, I was convinced in that moment that this is a mother's love for their child, right? Right. And so this memory comes to me in the middle of all this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was jolting. And so I was like, I think I should tell her about this. So I start telling her about this, like I just told you. And I was crying, and I was like saying like that doesn't mean like I don't love my son, or like that, like it means that I love him so much. And I believe that really, really fucked up thought was what the ultimate form of love is. And with depression, like when you have people who are dying like by suicide, it's because they feel like everyone would be better off without them. Yeah. And like, so that her mom wasn't actually like abandoning her. Like it was like
a final act of love.
Right. And like that she wouldn't have been thinking of anything like that. And like, so anyways, we had this like beautiful conversation. Yeah. And she was like, she said, I feel like I'm finally free of this resentment. And I was so shook after that because just of how not me did that memory come. Like it wasn't called by me. It wasn't me, just like it was something else, because these thoughts.
It was God.
And like it was so profound.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think like, and I've had a lot of moments like with depth and weight like that have come from sitting down and going through the steps, and I remember something or something comes up and through that, then I'm healing like my own things. Right. And it's like my steps get better, I guess, but it's like because I'm getting better because all
you're
these
peeling away these things too, right?
Yeah, that I wouldn't have even. You don't look at them in the same way like that.
Yeah.
So,
the experience of mine that was the height of anything I've experienced so far. I had been through this is probably my 20 to 25th sponsee. This is a bit ago. I was reading We Agnostics with her. And this is what I read. People of faith have a logical idea of what life is all about. Actually, we used to have no reasonable conception whatever. We used to amuse ourselves by cynically dissecting spiritual beliefs and practices when we might have observed that many spiritually minded persons of all races, colors, and creeds were demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and usefulness which we should have sought ourselves. Instead, we looked at the human defects of these people and sometimes used their shortcomings as a basis of wholesale condemnation. We talked of intolerance while we were intolerant ourselves. We missed the reality and the beauty of the forest because we were diverted by the ugliness of some of its trees. I've read that paragraph so many times. And when I read it, with this one sponsee, it was like a lightning bolt through my entire being. I tried recovery in 2007 and I saw the God word and I'm like, fucking nope. I knew there was no God. No. And that, as a result of a lack of willingness, I was out for a really long time until it got me into a lot of trouble with the law. Thank God I got back. But I've had an issue with God and with religion for a very, very long time. My family is not religious. I never knew where my issues stemmed from. And then I read that for the 35th time with a sponsee, and like a lightning bolt, I knew exactly where all of my prejudice came from. It came from an issue with a religious childhood friend and some family that did some fucked up shit. And so it was one of those things that really wasn't that big of an issue, but I always wondered.
Yeah.
I'm like, why to this day, I can watch a video about spirituality and be like, oh my God, this is so interesting. If you tack the word Jesus onto it, I'm probably going to swipe past it. I don't do it on purpose. I still have some issues with that stuff. Yeah. And I just think that it's, since I've discovered that, I've been able to do some healing around that. I've been able to do some searching around that. And I've been able to let go a lot of resentment that I didn't know that I had until this all came up. And I just think that people don't realize God's going to bring you what you need exactly when you need it. And that really is going to come from searching for it, which means going through this shit repeatedly.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Do you want to segue into the religious question? Because
sure.
That's on the list.
Okay.
That's I'm curious to hear more about.
Let me go through here. Okay, wait, hold on.
It was.
Are we talking about what do I believe in? What do I do if I believe in nothing or have religious experiences that were horrible?
Right.
Okay.
Cool. So I guess kick that one off with. Can you explain to me the process of how you were able to come into a situation where you were up against
these barriers?
Right. Yeah.
Accepting the program when I knew better that there was no God.
Yeah.
Oh God, I love talking about that. So when I came back, I was accepted into this program and they were like, you got to do this, 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 and this. And this includes doing the steps. And I was like, fuck, here we go. Like, I knew it was waiting, but I just did what I always did. And I avoided it till I had to deal with it. And it was staring me in the face.
Yeah.
And then it was staring me in the face and I'm like, well, maybe I can get around it, whatever. Got my temporary sponsor, never did the steps. Everything was fine. And then I got a real sponsor and she's like, let's get to work.
Yeah.
So when we finished more about alcoholism, she's like, Kate, we're going to be doing We Agnostics next time. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay. And I tried really hard to wrap my brain around it, but I just couldn't. I just couldn't because all I knew is there was no such thing as God. Like that, that's all I can say.
Yeah.
I had been to church once with that childhood friend. My parents were great. They were like, do you want a Bible? We'll get you one. Like,
yeah.
My mom was very, I'd like you to research a bunch of things and I'd like for you to find something that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a really great gift, except I'm lazy and got into drugs early, so I didn't look
This works for me.
I didn't look at anything. Yeah, drugs worked for me pretty well. So when we sat down, I was honest with my sponsor, and I think that that's a really important part of why I was able to get through it, is I was blunt, and I was very, very... Like, I pretty much challenged her and I said, good fucking luck, because this isn't going to work, because I just don't. So, and she said, will you allow me the opportunity to explain the information in this chapter before you pass judgment? And I said, pretty sure I've already passed judgment, but I'll fucking
give it your best
I'll
shot.
hear you out.
Yeah.
So we go through these things. She did a great job of breaking down what can be quite a confusing chapter if you don't know what you're looking for. And she did a really great job. We get to the point, do I now believe, or am I willing to believe in a power greater than myself? And she looked at me very, very timidly and she said, so what do you think? And I'm like, nope. And then she's like, so do you believe? And I said, absolutely not. And she said, okay, based on what we've gone through, are you willing to believe? And I said, that question makes no sense to me. I don't believe, so how could I possibly be willing? I don't understand what that means. Like, I was on, like, I'm like, you tell me I gotta be honest, I'll be honest. I don't know how you're gonna help me. I don't fucking believe in any of this shit. That part makes a lot of sense. I get that people can be wrong. I really like that Wrights Brothers thing, but I know there's no God. So I guess I'm fucked.
Yeah.
And so bless her heart, she changed gears and went a different way. And she said, why did you ask me to sponsor you? Mm. And exactly like we've talked about, I said, I was told to find somebody who had what I wanted. You seemed like you were in a good place. You hold yourself well. You seem happy. And as far as I can tell, you don't use drugs or alcohol. And yeah, I wanted all those things.
Yeah.
So then she said, if I looked you in the eye right now and I told you that I have an active connection and response from my higher power, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that there's a higher power working in and through my life every fucking day, would you look me in the eye and call me a liar? And I was like, you're making it so hard for me to say yes. Okay. And like, but again, I was so sure that I knew better. Like I was so ignorant, and like looking back now, that's what caused me a lot of the restless, irritable, and discontent that got me into all this. But I looked at her and I said, I got to be honest, right? She's like, yeah. And I said, okay, I believe that you believe that. Like, I was a tough cookie to crack.
Yeah,
like,
sounds like it.
Yeah, I really was. And then she's like, okay, then that's a start.
Good. There's a mustard seed there.
We'll start there. I don't have a very vivid recollection of how the rest of that meeting went. What I do know is the light clicked on a couple of days after that meeting. I was at a meeting and I listened to someone say, nobody comes into the rooms because their life is going well. We get here because we are hopeless, broken, and a lot of us are suicidal. So for most of us, step one is really, really done outside of the room. Step one's not that hard to understand. It's not that difficult to admit that drugs and alcohol have become bigger than you. Mm-hmm. So why is it so fucking hard to understand just the simple concept that maybe, just maybe, there's something better for you? Or sorry, something bigger than you that's better for you too. If something tangible like drugs and alcohol can be bigger than you, then why is this idea so fucking hard? Mm-hmm. You're telling me that there's not a possibility that maybe there's something bigger than you that can help you? Like, get your shit together, people. Like, this person was like, and I was like, fuck me, that makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Like, that was simplifying it to such a scale that took away all the religious part of it for me, because I couldn't let go of the religion part. I'm like, so you're telling me that something that I used hurt me and something that I don't understand could help me, and you're all telling me you found it? That I can try.
So we're talking now like about the faith is starting now, and the what you said. We believe that they believe and that it's working. So that's where it starts with a lot of people, and whether they acknowledge it or not, that's why they go on the journey of the steps. Is like, I think this worked for other people, so I'm going to try it, and that's like where I think that faith starts, and then you add, religion and a religious background that wasn't favorable. And that's a different like dimension altogether. Because if you have nothing, like if you're agnostic, you're not overriding anything. Right.
Yeah.
It's like you got a blank slate, and it's you're just, okay, I'm going to
Somebody burned by religion is 10 more prejudiced than an agnostic will ever be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting, and such a good example of, reading that and having this revealed to you, because that's how the healing is all the time. And to be like, wow, this is where this came from. Because I would have asked you the same thing, like, where did that come from if you didn't have like an indoctrination? So in that question's there for me, because I didn't think I was ever going to be able to override the way I was raised. And so I have a sponsee actually who she was doing some coursework, and one of the questions was interview someone and write a short summary of where their addiction came from. And so she asked me, and I was kind of jotting the notes. We were texting back and forth, and I was like, I think that this religious thing had way more to do with it than I like acknowledged. Like, I think it became such a core, like, fear. It was such a fear.
I get that.
So I was like 5-6 years old, and my grandma, she would play Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames. And it was like the 80s. So the filming wasn't that great. And there was this strobe light and this devil, and but it seemed so real. Mm-hmm. And I looked it up on YouTube, and I was like, holy shit, that's terrifying. Like, I would never show my kids this. And it would be like a scene of this family, and they'd be driving, and then they'd get in an accident, and then, oh, everybody goes to heaven because we all believed in Jesus, and oh, we're so happy. And then the next scene would be something else, drug addiction, or, some selfish businessman who's stealing money from the company, has a heart attack, and then he's getting swept away by this devil who was like cackling, and the strobe lights. Terrifying. It was terrifying. And then it was,
what's that called?
Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames.
I'm gonna have to
look it up and just be like, oh my God, Janine, I feel like so much compassion for you. It's like, but so that was like the front and center, I would say, of my childhood, was around heaven and hell and good and bad, and the threat of this impending doom of the world ending, and the rapture, and the mark of the beast. And like year 2000, I was 15, and my dad and stepmom were going to Mexico, my stepsister, and I didn't go because I was scared of the planes falling from the sky, because the Y2K was going to happen, and then it was going to be the rapture and hell on earth for 7 years and mark of the beast, and we're all going to die. And then and not only are you going to die, but then you're going to be alive in pain forever and ever. And you can't even imagine forever and ever. And there'll be fire and gnashing of teeth. And I looked up gnashing. And it's like, it's bad too. So it was like, I intuitively knew how bad that one was without ever looking it up. And I was just scared all the time and like lived my life around this happening.
Yeah.
And had like this, why try? Because I'm just a sinner and I'm always failing and like there's no redemption here and it's hopeless. And so the combination of that was like, well, obviously I got an anxiety disorder out of the whole deal. But it was like haunting. And over the years, my grandma switched from Christian Reform, which was what the original sin was. And then later she became like whatever it was, I don't know, but like an evangelical, I think, but a sovereign. And so she calmed down, and my child never got exposed to that sort of thing. There was a lot of like Bible stories and stuff, but not that. And I wouldn't have allowed that, but she calmed down, and on her like deathbed, she texted me from the hospital. I was in treatment, and she said, I'm really sorry for like forcing religion. And I had forgiven her, and yeah, she calmed down, but the damage was like deep, and
right.
It seemed like insurmountable. And so when I got to treatment, I was like, okay, if you're real or whatever, and I couldn't shake the dude in the chair, right? Like, it's like every time I was like, if you're real, I kept seeing the dude in the chair, and like, I felt guilty for not seeing that, like, right. Because we're told like, I am the way. Only. It's only through me. It's only through Jesus. There's no other way. And if you're thinking of another way, you're sinning and you're going to hell where there's fire and there's not, like, the whole thing. It's an endless loop. And so my stepmom, about 10 years before I got to treatment, she became Buddhist. And that came after like a near-death experience with cancer. And that's completely changed her life as well. And so I was watching this, and fucking family dinners were really funny because it would be like my grandma would go, da 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 da, Jesus Christ, da 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 da, amen. And then my stepmom would go, Om. And then it would go back and forth. And I was like, you guys like are kind of doing the same thing, which is a lot of promotion. But there was like attraction happening with my stepmom, which was quite confusing because I was like, okay, so what I suspected was that, that wasn't the only game in town that would work for people. And that if there was going to be a God, that it would be something like not excluding in the way that it was taught to me. Like right. There was a lot of exclusions. And so this was more encompassing and softer, and I saw it change my stepmom. Like she really she let go of materialism, and both she and my dad, they quit smoking and whatever drinking they were doing, not much, but they changed their lives, and calmed down and had a faith that was working for them. And so I get into treatment, and I'm in the step 2 group, and I'm pretty confused because I've been searching my whole life without even knowing I was. Trying to figure it out. So this looked like the Gaia app and Zeitgeist, and I took a world religion, and I took a philosophy of religion class, 2 of those, and so it was seeming like everybody was saying the same thing already, right? But I couldn't figure out how to just get rid of the guy in the chair, and then the guilt, the wave of guilt and fear that came from trying to, and so I'm sitting in this group, and there was a worksheet about, I don't know what questions it was at, but there's me, and I filled it all in so much. I just filled in every little piece of the paper that I could write on. I was answering this question because I wanted to be so thorough. I was giving it my everything. And so it came to my turn, Janine, what did you put down for your questions? And so I go to read, and then the woman who was teaching the group, she's like, oh, whoa, what is that? And I said, my answers. And then she's like, no. And then she's like, don't read. And she's like, she goes, just give me the short version. And I was like, well, I guess it says my stepmom's Buddhist and my grandma's Christian. And what if one of them's right and one of them's wrong, and I choose the wrong one? And she's like, hi, she was an Indigenous woman, and she's so funny. She's like, we're just trying to we're just trying to stay sober. We're not trying to solve world religion. Hey. And she said it just like that. And that was it. I was like, we're not trying to solve world religion. We're just trying to stay sober. And I don't know why that was the thing, but I was like, I don't need to figure it out because I'm never going to know anyway. All I'm trying to do is use whatever it is to stay sober today because I'm never going to know. And I've wasted how many years of trying to figure it out, not even like really truly acknowledging the reality of I'm never going to know anyway. So just pick something and go with it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like for whatever reason, I was like completely set free that day in that group. I haven't had,
I love
like,
that for you.
Yeah, it was really like, it was something. And I had been praying for it because I would say that would have been like my biggest barrier. If you would have asked me before, like going into recovery, what do you think is going to be the thing that's going to make it not work for you? And I would have said like, God,
totally.
I don't have a way out of this. I've been trying my whole life.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was quite the experience. And just like anything, I tell people, pray, just be willing to pray and be amused, you know?
Yeah.
And it seems like it changes your intention of how you're viewing things, right? Like it's like you start praying and looking, even if you're skeptical and wanting to prove someone wrong about it. When you're looking, you're already opening your mind up to a new possibility and a new way of looking at the world around you, because instead of a judgment or a like automatic thought about something, you're looking for deeper meaning.
Yep.
And then you see it.
I remember the first time I ever actively saw a prayer of mine be answered. And the most beautiful experience was that it was 5 hours after I prayed for it. It was very quick. I struggled a lot in the beginning. It took me a really long time to understand that it doesn't matter how I got here, it's that I got here. But the beginning was very, if I didn't have to be here, would I be here? And for whatever reason, that question plagued me constantly because I was pushed in through court mandation. And I woke up in the middle of the night. It was like a Saturday night rolling into Sunday, like 3:00 in the morning. I woke up, nightmare or whatever it was, immediately plagued by this question. So I went outside, I had a smoke, I started to cry. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was told to pray when shit like this happens. And I said, God, help me, send me. This is the first time I physically asked God for something. And I said, send me some kind of sign, some kind of understanding that I actually want this, because I can't deal with this fucking question anymore. And I went back to bed and I got up. And so I was in treatment with a girl who got kicked out of another treatment center. Her old roommate reached out to me the next day. I'd only met her twice. She reached out to me and said that she'd relapsed. She's with her son. She doesn't feel that she can be a safe mother around him at this time and needed help. I was not supposed to communicate with anyone that did that, but my white knight defects, they shifted into high gear. And I said, what's your address? I'm on my way. And so I went to her house. I'd never been there before. I'd only met her twice. I walked down the stairs and my eyes met her after a night on a tear of the tweaking and the coming down and the paranoia and the big pupils and the lack of sleep. And I took one look at her and I immediately went, holy fuck, I never want to go back there. And then I was like, wait a minute. I just asked for a clear sign that I actually wanted this and I fucking got it. And it was at that moment that my hope turned into faith. And I said, okay, I'll keep fucking doing this. Yeah, not a problem. The thing is, a lot of times, God answers prayers all the time. You just don't know how they're going to be answered or where to look for them. Something I thought I never could believe in is single-handedly the most important part of every single one of my days. I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have a higher power. It's pretty weird to think about.
Like how a person just like exists in the environment that is life without having like a reprieve. that is inside of them and
Yeah.
not a constant grab for
Yeah, it's
the
crazy.
distractions even.
Like I just remember how adamant I was that there was nothing. And now I'm like, my life is so enriched because there is. Right?
And that's the freedom that we talk about is that we're free from having to go outside of ourselves to look to people and places and things and distractions, and we can just be. And like I was talking about this the other day, that I historically, every personality test that I've done, like throughout like school and like work and stuff, I've been extroverted, and I'm like really introverted. And as I was like recovering and being okay with saying no, and like starting to like follow what's good for me instead of what do I think is good for everybody else so that they'll like me, or that like I'll avoid conflict. When I started to just follow that, and I was like, geez, like, am I depressed? Because I'm saying no a lot. And but I was just okay to be like with myself. And like I didn't have to be in a relationship, and which gives you the freedom, by the way, to discern, because I was always compelled to be with somebody because I didn't want to hurt their feelings, and I didn't want to. And so it was like, oh my, like the next person that shows up, I'm going to end up having to date them because I don't know how to say no, or I feel sorry for them, or I want to fix it, or like I need the validation, or like I need the distraction, or I have like all these fears economically, whatever the reason is. There's hundreds if you want to go down that avenue, but I felt like I would be compelled, and then I would be powerless against myself to make a good decision in like the dating department.
Right.
And once I was okay with myself, and that's because I had a faith, and like that worked for me when I was feeling restless, irritable, discontent, that I didn't have to go outside of that. And so true freedom comes from that, because you can discern and you can choose what's right, and you're not being like sidelined and pulled and pushed around by fears and by what people want and what like conflict you're trying to avoid. Like so many ways we can get lost.
Yeah.
And we lose ourselves. And this is about like, recovery is getting it back through uncovering where the defect, the brokenness is, and putting a light there and bringing it forward. And that's what we do with like 4 and 5 is we're exposing things by the roots, and then we're not driven by them anymore.
Right.
And so I was driven by so many things that like couldn't have been alleviated without me getting whole first. And that couldn't have happened without me having an anchor to anchor myself, to stay with myself, so that I didn't go out and pick the scabs of getting into another relationship or getting into like situations, jobs that I didn't want, because I was scared to, wait 2 more weeks without pay to apply for, to find that there's so many in recovery that I have like held on for what I think that, is best for me, rather than what does my fear say I should do right now, because those two things are never fucking what's best for me. And yeah, it's just like that's where the freedom has been, is like I never thought I could be single for as long as I have. And like I'm not, like people are like, why aren't you dating? It's like, well, like because I'm reinvesting in my family has been a lot. And it's not that I don't date, it's just that if I do, it's like I know what's going to work or what's not going to work, and I'm able to just call it and go on and not have like muckery. And so it's like it's a whole different thing, which I never would have thought that I could be like single this long and not be like, that's a big thing. Like getting over the relationships was like how I measured how my recovery would be. Is like, I'll know I'm recovered when, and the blank was when I can be single and I'm okay with it, and I feel like I'm in control of my dating life and it's not controlling me. And like all of this stuff, like I don't know how people can do it, like, because I never could. And so finding a higher power that works for me, finally, it's like the miracle,
Yeah. I think that on that note, because we have about 15 minutes left, I think that you looped into what should be our last question of the day.
Yeah.
When should a newcomer start to date?
Perfect.
I love it. You just kind of started digging into that one.
Yeah. Why don't you go? Because I've been talking for a minute and you start.
If you want a drink, you can grab one.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So you may have to take your headphones off though. I guess I'll start with explaining what was explained to me. And then I will go into what I recommend for others. So, I will say first and foremost that it is possible, but extremely unlikely to have an amazing relationship when you're new and don't know anything about yourself. Of all the rooms I've been to, of all the years I've been clean, and all the people I've seen one couple. Two people out of thousands that I have seen that they've been together for like 25 years, but he consistently talks about how he made her wait for an entire year to date her, which I'll get into that too. But so here, when to date, what gets thrown around the room is a year. I've never seen that anywhere in the book. I don't know if that is in any of the maybe stories I haven't read in the back of the book. But when I was in my program, they were like, don't date. And I was like, okay. And then I met this cute guy in one of the rooms and he had 5 years and I was like 6 months. So I was like, okay, like this is good. I'm going after like a good guy for the first time. Strange story. He never actually did the steps. He only ever went to the rooms. And I didn't know that at the time. Found out pretty quickly when we started seeing each other. It did not last very long. As a result, because I was very invested in the room and I was taking on service and I was very into doing the steps at that time. As a result, he actually never came back to that room. So I actually inflicted some damage on him. And that's something that I'm still looking to see if I can right that wrong. But so fast forward, I ended up talking to this program I was in and I told them about what happened because I was supposed to be honest. I'm like, I know you told me not to do this, but like I did it. And they're like, okay, stop that or you're going to get kicked out. And I was like, okay, understood. And I remember vividly, she said, the rooms tell you to wait a year. We believe it should be 3 to 5. And I was like, 3 to 5 years? Are you out of your fucking mind? That sounds like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm starting to wonder if 3 to 5 is enough.
Yeah.
I'm starting to wonder if 3 to 5 is enough. So my experience was that not great. So I did 5 and my sponsor said, do an ideal sheet of relationships, sponsor, family, whatever you need to do, what you bring, what you need. And I did all this stuff. And so I had this relationship thing. And I'm like, you have now talked with God and agreed that these things are really important to you, that you get those to have a healthy relationship. Make sure you meet all of the criteria you said was really important and you should not have a problem anymore. And I said, okay, great. So what did I immediately do? I immediately went to go date an ex of mine who didn't have 2 of the top 3 things I said were really important to me. So when it didn't work out and I was butthurt about it, I went back to my sponsor. She's like, where's your list? I'm like, don't know. She's like, do you know where it even is? Did you even? I'm like, I don't even know where it is. No, I didn't read it. She's like, you should probably find it and read it. And then I read it and I was like, oh, I fucked up. And then she's like, yeah, that was your fault. So next time, consult this. And I was like, okay. So then I did it again 6 months later with a different ex. Because it was a lot easier to go back to exes that you could probably convince to like you again than to try to find somebody new to like you. I wasn't good with rejection. That was the way
I'm better now.
The way my healthy brain was thinking. Again, didn't have one of the top 3 things that I said was really important. So when it didn't work out, I was butthurt, went back to my sponsor and she's like, pointed out that page that talks about, are we really sorry? Are we really trying to let God take us to better things? Or is this going to be a constant behavior? Because if so, you will go back out and you will drink. And I was like, oh shit, I need to take this shit really seriously. And so after that, I sat down and I looked at these things, but then I had a conversation with my sponsor and more importantly with God. And I said, I have come to the conclusion that I don't know anything about healthy relationships. And that I think that the most important relationship I dig into right now is my relationship with you, God. So I'm not going to look anymore. I'm simply going to work with you and work on myself and learn how to love myself. And when you think I'm ready, I really believe that you're going to organically put somebody in my path, and it'll happen organically. And for the next 2 years, I didn't look at dating anybody. I just did my thing. I worked with God. I worked on myself. And lo and behold, this wonderful man appeared that met all the ideals that I studied and I checked and I checked, and he met them consistently, and it grew into a beautiful, loving relationship. But it's weird because if it didn't happen to me, I don't think I could ever say that I ever thought it would be true, that it comes when you stop looking and it comes when you least expect it. I always found that to be so cliche. But when I actually stopped trying to find love and I started working on finding it within myself, it showed up. So,
yeah. Well, like I said, the relationship thing, I really wanted to address, like, you know, how the book talks about in the actor, and we do a column and we talk about who we're mad at, and then what did they do, and then what did it affect, and then the book's like, and that's where most people stop. And it's like, but really the key here, the key to freedom is to look at the column 4, which is like, what am I doing here that I'm causing my failure? And the defects arise out of us, it says, and they cause our failures. And we look at that in column 4. And I, like, in that chapter, it's saying, like, most people, they just stop at 3, you know, and they stay sore. And
that's what they bitch about on the bar stool.
Yeah. And I thought, well, why did they stay sore? They're just having like a resentment from like 1980. And it's like, no, they stay sore because they don't change themselves. And so they go out into the world and they have the same experiences over and over and over, and they stay sore. And I was just that actor. I was like, you know, some people can say, okay, well, I have a bit of a part, but it's mostly them. And that's,
I did this, but they definitely did more.
Right. And that's how I was. But it was just like, I really want to fix this. And I seem to be doing the same thing in these relationships. And it was like, I could only get to a certain place of like commitment and intimacy kind of. And like, I was really uncomfortable with like vulnerability and losing my independence. And anyway, I wanted to address that so that, you know, one of the definitions my teacher talked about with mental health was the ability, and this comes from way back, like or OG, one of the original ways to describe it is the ability to work and to love. And I was just like, the ability to work, and that's good enough because, you know, I have my kids, and it was really unhealthy. And I never wanted to look at like, why can't I have a healthy relationship? But I would say that that's the other piece, aside from the religious piece, was my relationship stuff. And the combination of that was getting in the way of me being able to stay sober and contributing to like the drinking stuff. And so I knew that was something to address. And I went into treatment. I was like, hey, this is like on the forefront of my mind. And just because of like my education, I had a addictions prof that was very passionate about codependency. And so like family systems and codependency and addiction in families, like that was like the foundation, I guess, of like where my like education started. So I've known it and I've been living it out. And that's when I say like I was compelled, because I like had all this knowledge, you know, the moral and philosophical convictions are not enough. That was what I was like living in all the time. It's like, why am I repeating this stuff? And so I wanted to find the answer in my recovery. And like I said, that was my if then that. And I would know that I had truly changed, right? So anyways, I dated this guy briefly in treatment, and I was pretty impressed with it because like it was, I went slow and I was like looking at the signs, hadn't done ideals yet. And he relapsed, and then I ended it. And so I was like, okay, that's good. Like I see the change here, but I think it's too soon. So I stopped dating, and a year went by because that was the year, right? So I hit the year mark, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, maybe I should date because this is weird. Like people are asking me, like, are you dating anyone? And it's like, there's a pressure to date. It's like weird if you're not. And I was like, I don't know. And so I didn't like go seeking it out, but I met somebody who like, we kind of clicked and went on some dates and I was like, okay, this is weird now because now I'm saying, I don't know what I'm doing for work because I'm still on mental health leave because I had an addiction that just about destroyed my life. And so I'm just kind of picking up the pieces and it's pretty confusing. And half my family, my children are in this other city and I don't know what I'm like. I'm just, if you're going to date me at that point, there's something like wrong here. I can't take you seriously. So I'm like, now's not the time. So I realized that I have to bring to the table the ideals that I want. And like, I would never date somebody, even at that time, with, oh, my life is here and there and I'm off work because of mental health and I don't know what I'm doing and everything's upside down. So I stopped for another probably like year. And I wasn't like opposed to it, but I wasn't like seeking it out. And somebody came along, I went on like some dates and we got into like a bit of a relationship, but I quickly was able to see like, okay, I don't, this isn't on my list. And then I could end it in a kind and loving way. And I found that I had a voice to do that, which was a big contributing factor to like why there was so much muckery. And I was able to communicate like, I don't feel like this is something that I'm my best self in. And so I just want to be friends. And I'm sorry that if that hurts you, and happy day, right? And it was like revolutionary. And so I've learned like communicating honestly about what's happening in real time, even if it's going to make it awkward, is like imperative because otherwise I'm hurting feelings based on assumptions. And so anyways, point of the story is that I'm at 3.5 years and like now I feel like I could meet somebody and not have a shit show. Like I feel like I'm stable in my life and have the mess kind of contained and cleaned up and that I bring a lot to the table. And I feel like I'm confident in myself that like you would be lucky to be with me and I would be lucky to have you kind of thing. And how would this potential person like enhance my life and vice versa, where I've never thought that before, where it's like I might have said it and I might have like convinced myself like, oh, well, I have a job and I have like, I would have told myself how awesome I was for you to, but I wouldn't have believed it because it would have been like, and I'm going to be drunk and I'm probably going to drink all your alcohol and then I'm probably going to cheat on you and then ghost you. And so like, but in the meantime, I'm quite the catch. So anyways, now it's like, I truly just have that like confidence and the freedom I was talking about. And so, and I trust like the timing, like, it's just like, I'm okay with what's going on in my life right now. And with new things have to go and I'm pretty busy. And, but I believe, like you said, that if somebody comes, I'll be ready for that and not afraid. And that's taken like, I would say like 3 years and that's of really just mostly being by myself. And I see like when people like sponsees get into relationships, it completely like sidetracks, like, and no matter what is going on, good or bad, they go to that person
for everything
instead of God. And it just stalls the process.
Not even just God, but like I've also like I've had sponsees vanish because they don't come to me anymore. They go to this person for everything.
Right.
Not only have they cut out God, but they've cut out their pillars, their sponsors. And I don't think they do it on purpose, but
they don't even know. And it's like, God's a theory at this point.
So dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't know where a year came from. Wait a year. I think that is like the absolute bare fucking minimum. I think that if anyone is going to have a healthy relationship, they have to take an actual honest look and say, how well do I know myself? How well do I love myself? And how well could I add to someone's life?
Yeah.
Because for me, once I understood that every pattern I had was damaging to other people and how I chose men was damaging to them and myself. I was just like, you know what? I need to work on me. And when I've learned how to love myself and God and I have a good relationship, when it's time, it'll be time.
Yeah. And that's that water finds its levels, you know, like it's like we lose interest. We just genuinely lose interest in all the things. Like I look at like somebody that I would have dated 3 years ago or did date. And it's like, I wouldn't have, because there would have been things that I just wouldn't have, like, I know wouldn't have worked for me.
Yep.
And so like, I have like, I feel like I did a good job modeling it to sponsees, and like when they were interested in dating, and some of them, there's a couple that have like really done an amazing job at just like doing what we're talking about without like adding all the relationships. And I think it's because like I was not because of me, but like I wasn't doing it. So then I could talk about it, and I was passionate about the solution that would come from like the abstinence. And so that was like, there was faith in that they had as well. And then I was watching them, and I'm like, oh, like it would be so different to add into their, like, there's two I'm thinking of for sure, that to add that variable, it changes the game completely.
Totally.
It's like their family afterward got to come first. And that's like, you know, a big feat, you know, especially like for if you have kids and like your parents, and like to put the family back together. If you add a new relationship into that, it's totally different, you know? Yeah. And so it's been like really I'm convinced that we need to be single for as long as
you can, man.
Yeah. And to ask yourself, like, at this point, me, how I am, if I was to get into a relationship with someone else, me, how I am, who is a reflection of me like that, is that going to be enough? Or do I want to just grow a little bit more and put off the urge to do that until, and usually the answer is, like for me, it's been, I want to wait, and I want to fix, I want to be a bit more stable in these areas. I want to spend more time with my kids in these ways. Like the answer has always been like, not yet.
And not surprisingly, it's probably why someone hasn't come along yet.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know. I think that it has definitely impacted my recovery in ways that I would never get if I was, you know, to date. And I think there's value that comes from learning to be with yourself. And I'd rather rip the Band-Aid off and do that first than than have a series of. So anyways, but that's just like what I did, and people do it differently. And
what works for one does not work for all. This is by no means a rule or instruction. This is just our experience.
I didn't know that about
right?
you. About just like the dating thing and.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had a couple bad goes, and I was like, I woke up pretty quick, and I was like, this is some deep fucking rooted shit that I have.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no more. Just me and God. Just me and God. And I spent a lot of time working on myself, getting good at being alone. I used to hate being alone, feeling lonely.
Yeah.
And I got to a place where I loved to sit by myself. I loved to sit with God. I loved to do my own thing. I finally felt comfortable in my own skin, and I felt at peace, and I wanted to enjoy that and dig deeper into that. And after a while, God was like, you're ready.
Yeah, I went back and did the personality test like 2 weeks ago with a coworker, and I was like really introverted, and I was like, that's so interesting, because like, who would have thought that my peopling was, you know, like a form of like a defect of like, here I am going into the world being like, oh, I'm so like this. And I really thought that was my character, which is why it was like, whoa, quite something to be like, wow, my independence is a defect, and my peopling is like riddled in defects. And when I cleared that up, it's like, wow, this is who I actually am, you know, and it's a trip.
Right?
Yeah, recovery is a trip.
It's a trip, but it's a great trip to be on.
Well, this has been great.
Yeah.
This has been so good.
It has been good. We have so many more questions, so
hundreds.
We will get you back in whenever we have a chance.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Awesome.
Okay. Thanks, Jen.
We'll see you next time, guys.